Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here for the fourth of a 16-part series as we float along the streets of Derry, Maine for
Stephen King's It.
That's right.
June of 1958, chapters 7 through 9.
Did you introduce yourself?
I'm Dalton Gentry, did I? I don't know.
I don't know if you did or not.
Well, I'm still Dalton Gentry.
I might have
It's
sped
fine.
right through that.
It's fine. Nobody cares who I am at this point. It's fine.
We're just on camera.
So, what happened? Basically, these three chapters are a continuation of the last three chapters. In each one, we get introduced to a new kid and figure out how he or she fits into the puzzle. And the boys build a dam. At least they're trying to build a dam before the world's most cliché cop makes them tear it down. But that's okay. What do you do when you can't build a dam and all of your friends are dying and everyone you know is having visions of their true fears looming in the shadows? You investigate the creepy, haunted, abandoned house on Neibolt Street, of course. Enter Beverly. Surely she will have a much better go than the other kids, right? Not so much. Her bathroom sink erupts with blood and she screams, so her father beats her. It turns out that only the kids can see the blood, by the way, the adults cannot. Take that for what you will, but I would say that makes quite the interesting conversation piece of the book so far.
Where do you want to start with this?
Do you have any points?
So very similar to our last bit of it here, we're getting focuses on characters again. Characters who have grown up in Derry, moved forward, and are now going back to Derry. However, I think the big emphasis on this particular chunk here...
No, you're wrong.
No. Emphasis is on innocence. The innocence of the children and their development into adulthood. Because it seems that when that innocence is lost, the children lose the innocence, they no longer can be fed upon by it. It's basically those childhood fears. Once you get over them, it has no power over you. We see that with the scene with Beverly in the bloody bathroom.
I don't know if that is correct.
You don't think so?
I think that it is. So if I were to bring you a raw steak.
Okay. It's delicious.
A raw steak.
Delicious?
No. Straight out of the package raw. You would not eat it.
Why not?
You would not eat it.
I would.
Don't be stupid.
Go
You
get
wouldn't
me a
eat it.
steak.
It has to be correctly cooked and correctly seasoned.
Okay.
Fear is that seasoning
Okay.
for the monster of it.
Okay.
For Pennywise, old Bob Gray, Tim Curry the Clown. I still refuse to acknowledge the Skarsgård guy. But I think that is the reason he doesn't eat adults
Okay.
quite so often. Now, we did see him eat Adrian Mellon,
Okay.
who was early 20s?
Something like that.
Something like that, I think, yeah.
Okay. That's fair. We have seen him devour somebody who is not only a child, but somebody who does live in fear. I don't know, though. There was such a focus on innocence and throughout this. We had this weird scene where the boys were basically talking about sex. And it just kind of wasn't adding up. It's a very comical little scene there. But that, again, puts that emphasis on the innocence of children.
Right.
And it seems like once that bridge is gapped, once you grow up, your innocence is lost a little bit, those childhood fears kind of go by the wayside. It seems to be that is when it is no longer something to fear for you. You move past it, and it can no longer feed upon you.
Well, it can. It refuses to. It doesn't. The steak isn't cooked enough.
Okay.
I think for my reading of the text is how it goes.
Okay.
Someone has to be. That's why. Otherwise, why would it concentrate on your greatest fears before eating you?
And we do see that highlighted again. That is something it's sticking with, and I still think is great. We see that with Eddie. Eddie's biggest fear is his health, because that's what's been ingrained into him in his childhood. Therefore, it becomes a leper. We see Beverly, we see a lot of blood. And we could take that as a little bit of symbolism there for the fear of menstruation. That'd be a huge fear for a young woman reaching her adulthood, would be the blood.
Well, not only that, but the loss of virginity.
Loss
right?
of virginity. What else you got here? What do you want to work with?
I noticed something for the first time that I can't believe I never noticed before.
We don't have the same pages. I don't know why I'm picking that up.
Stanley Uris. What was the first time in this text that we saw Stanley Uris? Stanley
Doesn't
Uris
he
takes a
come to-
bath.
Okay, yes.
That's the first time we meet him.
Way back when.
And he's the sacrifice. The sacrifice is the Jewish man.
Okay.
And I don't know, I was absolutely excited and convinced for a while that I was onto something super important because I thought that Stanley was the one with red hair.
Okay.
Stanley is not the one with red hair. It is Bill. But I think the reason I thought that is that in the old made-for-TV one, I think the actor who played Stan had red hair.
Okay.
But every 3 years, every 5 years, something like that, there'll be a craze go around the internet because apparently a perfect red calf has been born in the Middle East. And unfortunately, my theory is bunk because Stanley's not the one with red hair. But in the Jewish faith, a perfect red calf will be sacrificed to be the harbinger for the coming of the Savior.
Yeah.
So
End of days.
End of days, yeah. Or the end of, yeah, not the Savior, the end of times. So I was wrong there. But I believe that, so the big scene that happens here is the building of the dam.
Okay.
And on my page 283, we get this. Upstream of the dam, the water formed a roughly circular pool. And at one place it had actually overflowed the bank. Bright reflecting rills ran off the grass and the underbrush. Eddie slowly began to realize what Ben had known from the first. The dam was already built. The gaps between the boards and the banks were sluiceways. Ben had not been able to tell Eddie this because he did not know the word. Above the boards, the Kentucky had taken on a swelled look. I can't read today. The chuckling sound of the shallow water babbling its way up over the stones and the gravel was now gone. All the stones upstream of the dam were underwater. Every now and then, more sod and dirt, undercut by the widening stream, would fall into the water with a splash. The water in Derry has been billed as an unstoppable force.
Okay.
The older generation, like Zach Denbrough, Bill's dad, have conceded that this force is in fact unstoppable. So unstoppable that they have jobs where they assume the responsibility of harnessing that force and turning it into electricity.
Okay.
This younger generation, the ones that figure among themselves to take on it, they're toying with ways to smother that unstoppable force. This new generation acts instinctively.
Okay.
Ben doesn't know the words. They don't have the words yet to communicate this.
Okay.
They're acting off of instinct. They're acting off of ways to stop that unstoppable force.
Okay. I think you can play on that as well because we actually get in that scene a member of the older generation showing up and being like, you can't be doing this. Tear the dam down. So again, the older generation says, the water's unstoppable. It needs to continue to flow for reasons that he has of his own. The younger generation just concedes because that's what we're supposed to be doing.
And that member of the old generation is such a member of the old generation that this does not seem to be his motherland.
Okay.
He's even from the old world.
He is.
So he has come to the new world to spread word of the unstoppable force. So what is that unstoppable force? That unstoppable force is water.
Okay.
What is water?
What is water?
Symbolically.
It sustains life. It's necessary for life.
And it cleanses.
And it's cleansing.
So the younger generation has decided to toy with the unstoppable force. The unstoppable force in Derry, Maine, it is difficult to peg that as innocence, as cleanliness,
Okay.
as that which was to wash.
Purity.
What?
Purity.
Purity. It is difficult to say that in Derry, Maine, the unstoppable force is purity, isn't it?
Okay.
So the nature of the thing is not the symbology of the thing. People use water to clean because water is cleaner than people. But it is just a piece of nature.
It is.
It is just a force of nature. It is neither good nor bad. It simply is, right? We talked a little bit in the last episode about things which just are. We talked a little bit about the nature of things when we talked about predation.
Okay.
The super predator, the apex predator. A lion is neither good nor bad. Though we often paint them as regal, they are not royalty. They just do what lions do.
Nature.
They're surviving. Is this a commentary on it? It being the darker nature of people.
And it just is.
It just is.
Okay.
You're not going to stop it. You can try to defeat it. But that darker nature of humankind will always be, will persist. You can lock it up. You can put a dam around it. You can try to control it. But it will just be.
Okay. So what does that say about, let's talk again about younger generation and older generation, because the younger generation here has the capability to possibly stop that dark nature of humanity. But at some point, up until this generation, everybody else has just come to terms with it. They've come to accept it. It is the way it is, and things are never going to be able to change. So it's basically Stephen King saying here, we could be better as a human society, if you will, but we just have to start making these changes. We've got to do things that are a little bit better.
I don't know if that's the commentary.
You don't think so?
I don't know, because, there's another way to look at this. The older generation, Zach Denbrough,
Okay.
works at the electric plant. The electric plant is a dam. Ben has built a dam. Perhaps this is just a way to state the perpetuation of those things which we have seen.
Okay.
What is it? Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny?
Sure, let's go with that.
So the act of the individual is just a representation of the act of the whole
Okay.
as it has been seen and absorbed?
I don't know if I got an answer for you there.
Nothing? Nothing
No,
there?
I don't think I got
Okay,
anything there.
that's fine. What else you got?
So I think we do have a little bit of Stephen King having some good writing moments in this here. So Stephen King is primarily a horror author. He's the man who wrote On Writing, and he wrote Danse Macabre. Danse Macabre being the one that breaks down the horror genre and how it works.
His treatise on the horror genre, if you will.
And we do get little elements of that kind of being peppered in throughout here. One of the big staples of horror fiction is the idea of the haunted house, the standard manifestation of horror within a dwelling. And we get that in the house on Neibolt Street. Neibolt?
I'd say Niebold.
Neibolt. Either or. But we get that on that house there. We get these little bits of just standard horror genre being peppered into this. And this is not standard horror. This is doing a lot of interesting things with the horror genre here. Which is why I think this is considered one of the greats of that genre, is it does things a little bit different. But Stephen King is still peppering in these standard elements that make it that horror genre, that make it familiar to the reader, that give the reader a base reference point for the genre while expanding upon it. So I think that's good stuff here. We also get the idea of the fear's manifestation in, or its manifestation in what is preying upon the children as their fears. It manifests itself as the wolf, the teen wolf from the movie. That is right after the kids went and saw the movie. Do you remember going to the movies as a kid, seeing your first horror movie?
I saw one movie as a child, so no.
I went and saw The Mummy.
Did you?
I walked to the movie theaters and saw The Mummy by myself.
The old Mummy?
No,
Which
it was
mummy?
a
The
Brendan
Brendan Fraser
Fraser Mummy. And albeit...
Do you swear? Do you swear?
Albeit...
Every damn day.
Terrible movie.
That was a great movie.
It's a terrible movie. Brendan Fraser is a terrible actor. But
That was a great movie.
scared the Jesus out of me as a kid. Because once it was over, I had to walk the 4 blocks home in the dark by myself.
Yeah.
And the Mummy was going to get me.
Well, of course.
So I think that's great there. That's, again, playing upon, the ideas, that first childhood fear, going to the movies and seeing that. That's what's fresh in these kids' mind. And that is what it is going to manifest as and prey upon them. Because you would have told me the Mummy was going to pop out and go the streets of Cameron, Missouri and get me when I was like 7 years old walking home.
You'd have believed it.
Absolutely so. So I think that's well done. It really is.
Well, a couple things. One, with your former point about peppering in elements of other horror, just from some of the things that I don't remember if I heard or read Stephen King say about it,
Okay.
is he was basically wanting to write a book and was thinking about all of the horror tropes and just kind of said, what if I just do them all?
It seems to be what's going on.
And that's
here.
what it is. But this idea of it reflecting the fear which the children had just absorbed. This is not their primary fear.
No.
This is what is fresh on their tongues. It makes you wonder if it is sentient of those things with which it is representing.
Okay.
Like a chameleon. I don't know if chameleons even see color. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But they're on the thing and they change their color.
Interesting.
Does it simply absorb and reflect the way a chameleon would?
It's interesting. And again, I have not read this book in its entirety. I don't know how it's going to play out. I think you might be able to get a better answer from that when we start seeing it manifesting towards the group of children as opposed to just to individuals.
Okay.
So we've seen it kind of like with a few things here because we saw it manifest in the photo album, was it, of Georgie's?
Yeah.
And again, we get Stephen King flexing the horror genre here because we get mention of ghosts. Maybe it's the ghost of Georgie that's haunting us. But I think that's where our answer is going to come from. Why are you smiling?
Because you just used the word manifest.
Manifest. Sorry.
You Daltoned all over that.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm allowed to butcher the words.
It's not fair, it's 5:30.
Fair enough. Anyway, where are we going from here?
For me, on page 313, we get this quote, which is from the old-timer Mr. Nell as he catches them building the dam, and he is impressed.
Okay.
You'll do great things someday, I've no doubt. But the Barrens isn't the place to do 'em. That is a hell of a quote. You're going to do great things, but this isn't the place you do them.
Okay.
It is, so for example, the biblical quote, cast no pearls before swine. That is sort of character advice, right?
Okay.
Don't cast pearls before swine. If you're saying all of these really intelligent things and no one is paying attention to you, don't say them there. You're doing all these great things. This is a terrible place. Don't do them here. So if cast no pearls before swine is character advice, this is setting advice.
Okay.
I've got nowhere really to go with that. It is just an interesting observation for me.
Well, on just an observation level there, that is something that you get every now and then, especially from the older generation. Clearly, this person comes from a different area. You say Irish, is it, I believe?
Yes.
However, that's the old man coming and saying, you kids are doing great, but, you're destined for bigger things. Get out of this town. This isn't for you. Don't be confined to this area. Move forward in life.
Yeah, you're forced to play with that on multiple levels there, aren't you?
You are.
Because the Barrens, if you are taking that up a level of magnitude, is representation of Derry, Maine in general.
Okay.
And of course, Mr. Nell goes on to be correct. Ben Hanscom becomes a world-renowned architect, but he doesn't do that in Derry.
Correct. A lot of them go on to great things,
They do, don't they?
but not in Derry.
Not in Derry.
Okay. All right. So when we first got, is it Mr. Nell?
Yes.
We first got Mr. Nell, I really wanted him to be the harbinger of doom. Because if we're going to be playing with all these classic horror tropes, and that was really firing for me in this reading, I wanted the harbinger of doom. But he's not. He's kind of the opposite. He's the man who says, get out of town. Let the town die off. Let it be. Go on to better things. I'm still waiting for the guy who's going to say, bad things are a-coming, kids.
Well, and it was awfully tempting because he was the old man with a funny accent.
Harbinger of doom.
Yeah.
But it's not there. It's not there yet. It could be coming. I don't know. But we do also get Stephen King playing with some classic literature as well. Because Beverly has married her father, 100%. She's left him at this point, but it is absolutely Beverly grew up to marry her father.
Yeah.
So Stephen King, I think, is playing with a lot of great things here. And again, this is very pop fiction-y. The writing is not terrific by any means. It's not deep by any means. But he's playing with a lot of good things here that are really making you think. And it's wonderful because he does it in such an easy language that if you're just sitting down to enjoy this for the read, it's not bad. You're going to have fun with it. But once you start really digging into this, there's a lot of things you can find in here.
Well, that's the hell of the thing, isn't it? What is pop fiction? What is the line between pop fiction and literature? The eye of the beholder.
we've made the argument many times. It could be marketing. It could be who the audience is for, how it works out when it sells.
Well, and I think that I have often said, and I've often said on the channel, that it is the true testament to intelligence. So any ass can sit down and see Shakespeare as literature.
Okay.
The tell of your skill as a reader and a critic is to be able to make something great of something that's not.
Okay.
I will not say this is not great. I think that a lot of the things that are in here that are really transcendent are put in there purposely and purposefully by Stephen King.
Okay.
But if you can sit down with, I don't know, a Garfield comic and talk about how it is really representative of the daily experience of common man, that's a testament to you.
Okay. So basically just...
Well, that's not fair. A lot of wit goes into cartoonists like that. If you can sit down with an episode of Family Guy and tell me what's deep in Family Guy,
Okay.
then I'll give you a prize.
It's finding the diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Anything else you got to say about Stephen King's It this week?
Well, we get this quote on, for me, 360 and 361. More coal dust sifted down. This time, where are we at here? Oh, this is when, this is when Bill and Richie have broken into the house on Neibolt Street.
Okay.
Do you say Neibolt or do I say Neibolt?
You say Neibolt. I say Neibolt.
You say Neibolt. More coal dust sifted down, this time on Richie's face. He wriggled out into the side yard like an eel. He wriggled out into the side yard like an eel. Do you remember our last episode?
Did we have wriggling eels?
No, but we had the definition of Kenduskig.
Okay.
You don't remember this?
I don't.
Kenduskig is a word that means eel weir place.
Oh.
Eel, trap, place. It would be very easy to write off using the word eel as something slapping around. It would be very easy to write off having the Kenduskig. When you put the two in the same text in this fashion, what are the odds that Stephen King accidentally chose the word eel to be writhing around?
Pretty unlikely.
Well, it seems a lot like a literature thing to do, though, doesn't it?
It does seem like a literary thing to do.
That's not necessarily a poppy thing to do, is it, Dalton?
Dare you say it's finding a little diamond in the rough in this?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. That's something we talk about with when it comes to writing in general, is the writer's choices, the author's choices, and how they're using everything here. I can't say I've ever heard anybody say, they were wriggling around like an eel. It's usually a snake that's wriggling around.
Or a fish out of water.
Fish out of water. So it seems very purposeful. And those are things you got to kind of pick up on.
Yeah.
Little hints like that. Anything else you've got this week? I am out of talking points.
You're out of
for
talking
this.
points?
This is all the Adrian show now.
Well, I'd like to go back to that first point about the kids building the dam.
Okay.
Do you think that's recapitulation? Or do you think that it is the kids breaking from the ordinary? Because we've got evidence that they do break from the ordinary, right? They're coming back to kill
It's
the
fair.
thing.
It's fair. But, building a dam, that's a very childlike thing. It seems very natural. It's something you would do as a kid.
We built a dam in the creek. Turned out it was sewer water, but
Fair enough. You learned that growing older. It's fine. It's kind of a little bit of both, I think. I think it is. I think they are breaking the mold, but they're still being standard kids. And I think that, again, is a testament to the writing on this. We're seeing very childlike actions, very normal things going on here, but they're going to be playing a significant literary role.
I think that to your interpretation of the novel, it is important to make that decision.
Okay?
Because we have talked about the fact that the adults don't see it.
Yes.
But we have adults seeing it.
We do.
Not just Adrian Mellon, his boyfriend, who was, I think, in his 30s, right?
Okay.
His boyfriend saw the clown.
Okay. So is it not, again, getting back to the point of, the innocence of the children, is that why they can see it? Is that why they have this gift? Is it that, or is it just the harboring of fear? Basically, the kids grow up and they lose all these childhood fears, therefore it has nothing to prey upon. But Adrian Mellon and his boyfriend had other things to fear in town, very realistic fears.
Well, so that is definitely true. But what might it be that would cause someone to put forth the energy that Adrian Mellon and his boyfriend feared, if not fear.
It'd be the situations in the town.
Well, but I mean, what I'm saying is fear makes people act aggressively as well.
Okay.
So often it is the case that someone acting out in the way that would cause them to put all of the graffiti someplace like they had, is that they're afraid of something too. And they're trying to find some outlet for that fear, and that outlet for their fear is to hate someone else.
Okay. It's possible. I'm trying to like piece this all together how I want to say this. Is it possible that it is basically using those people as bait, really?
Conduits.
Yeah, conduits. That's a good way of putting it. It is installing the fear into them, forcing them to create all this graffiti, which essentially creates a trap. It starts to brew that fear within Adrian Mellon. It starts to brew that fear within that little sect of the town.
That little weir.
That little weir.
Little fish trap.
It works.
So I think that we talked last time about whether or not adults could see it, whether or not adults were afraid of it. It seems very much that fear permeates Derry, Maine. So if fear permeates there, is it just the adults being too dead inside to recognize the thing?
And it could be. I mean, we do get very clearly here that the adults cannot see it with the blood scene.
And we have, from your daily experiences, you're 34 now?
29.
Same thing. Trust me, I'm 34 now. How many people do you know that are your age that want to be the same thing when they grow up that they did when you were 12?
None of them.
None of them. How many people do you know that are your age that fear the same things today as they did when they were 12?
None of them.
Do those things go hand in hand?
It's possible.
Is it the ability to imagine?
Also possible. I could tell you another thing about people my age. A lot of them have just gone on autopilot.
Yeah.
Which is something to say we don't see the fear because we just don't even think about it anymore.
Right. So those things being related, perhaps as they are, what is special about our protagonists that allows them to reassume the fears that they once had?
It seems like they were the ones who got away. They didn't just go on autopilot. Autopilot. They didn't settle down in Derry, Maine, start a family, and roll over and die. They moved on to bigger and better things. They changed things.
What bigger and better things?
Well, they got out of Derry. They
what's
started
Ben
careers.
doing?
What's Ben doing? What is Ben doing at this point? There's too many kids.
Ben's the architect.
Ben's the architect.
What's Ben doing?
I don't know. What is Ben doing?
He's an architect!
Okay! Is he... Are we going with like a building analogy here? What do you want to do here?
No, that's what he was dreaming about in these times.
Okay, but he actually actualized those dreams. He moved out of Derry. He reached his goals. He didn't just stay there.
Yeah.
He didn't just become stagnant like everyone else.
Right.
Maybe that's what it is. But I'll tell you what.
What?
We'll be back next week. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Because we will be back next week with part 5 of this series, Derry, the Second Interlude. Shorter reading next week. That'll be always fun. And we'll talk a little bit about what's going on.
Welcome to the next interlude. Interlude. That's a Dr. Dre joke.
I don't get it. So if you like this kind of thing, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Give this video a like as well. We always appreciate it. And if you want to help us create more great content like this here on Strip Cover Lit, there's a link to our new and updated Patreon to be found in the description below.
Boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom.